Welcome to the Esteban Hours Week in Reviews Sound Off. We're sounding off our opinions is better than punching a hole in the wall. You know that costs a lot to pay for that, right? Today's sound off is Mississippi approves religious exemptions for child vaccinations. Do you agree with that or do you not? Where exactly do you stand on this subject? But first, let's bring in our panel from Pennsylvania, author, activist, co producer, and co host of the Esteban Hours Week in Review, Jeremy Baker. And joining the Esteban Hour family for the first time is Justin Rowland, a life fitness coach from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello,
Welcome.
hello.
Thank you for joining us today. How's everyone doing?
Doing great. Cannot complain.
You know me, I'm always good. I always complain, but I'm always good too.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
I'm
So
the
I
one
got to
that
ask
complains all
you.
the time. That's
All
kind of my
right.
thing.
Justin, your first time on the show. You're a virgin. Thank you for joining.
Yes, that is correct.
All the way
We'll
from
have some fun.
Oklahoma. We love Oklahoma. And we're happy that we get Oklahoma to join the Esteban Hour. So thank you.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
just so we're straight, how many hours behind you are we? I'm trying to get everybody's time zone straight.
He's
What?
one.
Just one.
How many hours?
Yeah,
He's
Central
one, just
Time.
like the others. Yeah.
Oh, just okay. I got it. All right, so
Yeah.
we're good there. I have to
All
remember that for
right.
the
All right.
future.
Okay. So, as we had mentioned, today's topic is about religious exemptions in the state of Mississippi regarding childhood vaccinations. As of Monday, July 17th, 2023, the Mississippi State Department of Health is now offering religious exemptions for school vaccinations. The policy is in response to a federal court order that was issued back in April. The exemption is in addition to the existing medical exemption process in Mississippi's Department of Health. Now, for a religious exemption, a parent or guardian will be required to schedule an appointment at a county health department office and submit Form 139-R, which is available on their website and at any of their health department locations. During that appointment, the parent or guardian will watch a vaccine education video, boring, and will have an opportunity to ask questions. Now, health department staff will complete the form for them and submit it to the state epidemiologist for review. In each exemption process, the parent or guardian will be informed of any vaccine preventable diseases for which the child has not yet adequately been immune from, and also any current outbreaks that may prevent the child from attending daycare or school. So before we get into this discussion, let's watch this video.
Judge rules that Mississippi must join most other states in allowing religious exemptions from vaccinations that children are required to receive in order to attend school. This ruling comes as a result of a lawsuit filed last year by several parents who say their religious beliefs have led them to keep their children unvaccinated and out of Mississippi schools. The deadline for the Mississippi Department of Health to allow religious exemptions is July 15th.
Okay. All right. So first question, I will pose it to our newest member, Justin. Do you
Yeah.
believe in religious exemptions for child vaccinations?
I believe in the religious exemption as far as past vaccinations. I could see that really not being an issue, but when COVID came about, with some of the negativity that came along with the COVID vaccine and how forceful it seemed and how aggressive they were pushing that,
Mm-hmm.
I could see where the religious aspect of it would be pursued a little bit more after the COVID vaccine. or during the COVID vaccine.
Right. Okay. So we're going to talk about two different aspects here. We're going to talk about vaccinations since, or post COVID, and we'll talk about, past vaccinations from, childhood or when you were babies. But
Yeah.
okay, so first, dealing with post COVID vaccinations. Why do you feel that, since it was pushed out, why do you feel that religious exemptions should get a pass?
That's a good question. Uh, Man, to be honest with you, I would just have to say that if there is, and I do not know if there's any documentation in scripture on this, and I think we'll cover a video on this shortly, but as to my knowledge, I don't know of any scripture that implements vaccinations or any medical anything towards that.
Me neither.
Right. Right.
Do you
So
mind?
I really don't know where religion would be tied into this at all.
That's the one that confuses me. I don't understand where theology comes in. This is again with like this is the same thing with abortion. You know what I mean? They don't believe in abortion because of the religion, and that one. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe you can justify that with the Bible, but like you said, I'm pretty sure vaccines weren't even a twinkling in somebody's brain back when the Bible was written. So I don't understand how religious
And it's funny
preference has to do with getting vaccines.
it's funny that you said that, Jeremy, because when I was going over this topic, I thought the same thing. That's exactly what they said, or was their excuse to do away with Roe versus Wade and abortions. But you know what else this reminded me of under the category of vaccinations? Years ago, when parents were feuding about vaccinating their kids because it was causing autism. Remember that?
That was the first big, yeah.
And that they felt that they had the right not to vaccinate their children because they felt it was causing a form of autism, which I don't know even to this day if there's any scientific evidence of that. But now, bringing that forward with COVID, where's the scientific or biblical evidence that shows you should not get a vaccination based on your religious beliefs? And what religion is that?
Yeah, a lot of these people believe that God will take care of them, but that's not what vaccinations are about. You know what I mean? They're to help you live a better life. I mean, most studies will show, and I think I agree with Justin when he said earlier about the COVID vaccine felt pushed. I think part of it was everybody was freaking out because it was a whole new thing that we've never faced before.
Everybody was dying, not just
I mean,
out.
people were dying. You know what I mean? So I think we have to consider that when it comes to the COVID vaccine, because it was a worldwide, pandemic. So, but even now, people are refusing to get even the most basic vaccines, like for polio and the whooping cough. You ever seen a kid with whooping cough?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it looks like that kid's being tortured. It's awful. And just other small diseases and illnesses that we've basically eradicated. And by not getting your children vaccinated, you're literally welcoming these things back into the existence.
Yes.
So
let's talk about Florida for a second. You have heard that Florida at the moment is going through some new bouts of leprosy and malaria.
Woo. They got it all down there.
What happens if that becomes an outbreak? Then what?
Go
ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think a lot of it is the presentation of the vaccine, like how you present it. And the way they presented COVID was probably not the best route. And I know it was an emergency. It was very urgent. But, when you take your child to the doctor and they present it in a very relaxed way, it's just not, it doesn't feel it just has a different feeling. So, you know, and especially with the autism, I think that started in the late 90s, and then they retracted.
Jenny McCarthy started that whole trend.
Yeah. And then they retracted it in 2010. So you had a pretty good run of that negative aspect of vaccinations. And then we've had this amount of spread from 2010 to 2019. So, you know, so basically from 98 or the end of the 90s to 2019, there was already a negative spin put on vaccinations. But now it's how they're presenting it. You know, you can present something a completely different way than how they did with COVID, and things would be okay.
And you know, I guess I would agree with you on that too. But there were a lot of different factors that mattered back in 2020. Number one, like you said, it was being pushed out very, very fast. However, people were dying by the minute, by the second. And so the United States, health department felt the need to try as best as possible to come out with an anti-COVID vaccination to start preventing all these deaths. I mean, it was thousands and thousands on a daily basis. Number two, we can't forget the political warfare that was entangled in the health department at that time. Okay, and we don't need to mention names or find blame.
Don't you do it.
I won't do it. I won't do it.
Don't tarnish the show with that name.
But the facts remain that the political warfare trumped the health concerns of every American. We did not have the opportunity to just focus on the many options or choices on trying to rid us of COVID. How do we not know that there might have been other options or choices besides this vaccine? But we couldn't get there because people were dying by the second. And when you would talk to other leaders about it, you know, Clorox was brought up. So,
light, razor light shined into the body somehow.
And you've also got people that wonder if that was a population control method or strategy.
That's true. I've heard that.
It's actually, it's actually funny you say that, because one of my favorite shows is a show called Utopia, and it's about a disease that's intentionally spread. So everybody freaks out and gets the vaccine, and then the vaccine's true intent is actually to sterilize 95% of humanity. And that show came out during COVID, so maybe that didn't help.
Yeah.
But no, I think the only thing that concerns me about the COVID vaccine, as opposed to other vaccines that have been around for decades, is the speed in which they came out with it.
Absolutely.
It just seems like, I mean, obviously it was an emergency situation, but I mean, I think in 6 months they came out with the vaccine. This seems fast.
Hold on. Did you not know that they had already been COVID was not new. COVID was already a known disease. And scientists were already in the making of a vaccine for it. So when they didn't start creating a vaccine, they accelerated the time in preparing. They were already somewhere in the middle, which is why it seemed to happen so quick. They had how can you say, they had a sample of a different strain of COVID. And what they did for the next 6 months is they needed to they needed to connect that strain with the type of strain that we had in 2020. And that's why it seemed to happen just like that. But they didn't start from scratch, from zero.
Gotcha. Well, there's always the conspiracy theory too that it was intentionally released to interfere with the election, which I think that is probably the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. But that's another conspiracy theory. About COVID.
That would be totally ridiculous, because in this sense, the president that was in office, he was going for re-election, and so who in their right mind would do that? Who in their right mind would actually do that?
Gotcha.
So, okay. Next question, Jeremy, for you.
Yes.
Do you, if you had your children in school and you knew or you heard that there were other classmates of your child that were not vaccinated, what would you do, or what would you say, or how would that make you feel?
I'm one of those parents that's like, I'm not that overprotective about it, I guess. I don't know. My kids are vaccinated, you know what I mean? They're perfectly healthy, they're perfectly fine. And they're vaccinated against things that other kids are not getting vaccinated against, but it still does present the possibility of contagion in the air. You know what I mean? It doesn't increase the risk around other kids to not be immunized against these things like COVID and the flu and these other things that polio, stuff like that. There's really no reason. Measles, for crying out loud. You want your kid to get measles, put them through all that misery?
Right.
So I think I think you're just increasing the risk of other kids getting stuff they shouldn't need to worry about.
What about you, Justin?
I agree with him 100%. My kids are vaccinated, and you just, as a father, you want to kind of, you want to protect your children. So whether your personal opinion is against it or for it, you've got to think outside the box and think, okay, how can I better provide safety and health for my child? So, right. You cannot let your personal life affect your children's life. You really can't push that on them. So that's kind of the route I would go.
I agree with that because I often wonder under this topic, we are the parents and we are in charge of maintaining the safety and security of our children. But this is a thin line to be walking. Suppose that your child in 10 years, when they turn 18, looks at you and says, how dare you not give me that vaccination? I would have taken that. I wanted that. Then what do you say? It's too late.
Yeah.
Man, I grew up in the military. They vaccinated the living shit out of you. So I'm surprised I don't glow in the dark at this point. I've had so many vaccinations. Yeah. But actually, now that we're talking about COVID, let me play that video real quick before we get too far into that. If that's okay with
Justin?
You guys.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Justin.
No, I was just going to say, you would hate to let stubbornness affect your child's health.
Yes. Yes.
That is true. What we see these days, the parents are trying to impose their will on the kids. I think, yeah. I don't know if we were like that when we were kids, but it seems like, I don't know, parents are just trying to force and impose these things on their children like they have a choice. We're going to wake up one day and realize that these kids are going to do their own thing. And
absolutely.
Yeah, we need to teach them properly.
Now, like I mentioned, I was brought up in a religious household, and there were rules and regulations and morals that we had to stick by, but we weren't treated as robots. My parents did allow us to think for ourselves, but they would reason with us. So they wouldn't just tell us, no, you have to do this, that, and the other thing, but they would explain as to why they were telling us this and the benefits it is to listen, and also the consequences if we didn't listen. Whereas today it's like the children have no say, so the parents just speak for them and that's it.
Yeah, I like to clarify too that it's difficult out there now, I think, for parents. I mean, the fear level is through the roof. So I think parents have so much on their plates and so much misinformation out there. A lot of people just don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the most dangerous aspects of misinformation and disinformation, right? No one knows what to believe anymore. And obviously it includes even your own party. Whoever you vote for, sometimes you don't even know whether you should believe them or not.
Yeah.
Because nowadays selfishness is everywhere. So people are doing and saying and reacting based on their own feelings and their own wantings and their own benefits, not the benefits of their neighbors, or their fellow Americans, right?
I agree.
All right, why don't we play this next video?
All right.
The Christian Church in Rockland.
And it's on the form, all the scripture references.
A pastor signs exemption forms, citing religious beliefs as protection from the need for a COVID-19 vaccine.
For us who choose not to, we put our faith in the Lord.
But how does that hold up in the workplace? According to the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, employers must provide, quote, reasonable accommodations for workers who have, quote, sincerely held religious beliefs.
It doesn't mean that they have to grant all exemption requests.
Michelle Mello is a Stanford Law School and health policy professor for the University School of Medicine. She says in the past, employers have granted a, quote, fairly large berth for religious exemptions. But with COVID, that has changed.
Now it's funny because I've had a couple jobs where they actually require vaccinations in order to, as part of the stipulation to get the job. You have to be okay with being vaccinated. So yes, the COVID's definitely changed the whole. You know what I mean? When you go around, when you have a disease that goes around, kills, millions of people, that changes everybody's perspective on things, I think.
It does, and in my opinion, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, what happens when we have? I mean, I think COVID killed maybe half of 1% of America's population. What I mean, and I don't want to be the doomsbringer here, but what do you happens if we have a disease that comes out and kills 10, 20, 50% of the population? You know, I mean, that would be mass chaos. Yeah. So if people think COVID was bad, that's not worst case scenario. Something out there could come out that's worse. And I think we need to take the way we treated COVID, because I think COVID was treated as a joke at the beginning, and that's why a lot of people died. But I think hopefully people take COVID and reacting to situations like this more seriously from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is a sensitive topic, right? This is serious, and not a topic to be made light of. But you have to often wonder, is it okay for a non-vaccinated child to be around a vaccinated child, to mingle with one another? Sometimes I often wonder to myself, if they're going to approve a religious exemption or any kind of exemption for that matter, shouldn't that person be held liable or responsible in the event someone else gets sick because of them or from them?
I think that's a good question, actually. I think that's fairly reasonable to say. You know what I mean? If you're going to choose religion over science, and I hate when people think I bash religion, because I mean, I don't believe in religion, but I do believe, in God and all that stuff. But I just hate when people don't let religion and science coexist together. There is a way for that to actually happen. And I hate when people put their beliefs over facts and scientific evidence and doctors, medical experts. You know what I mean? God is not a medical expert. Okay. People on this planet are medical experts. It's time you listen to them.
Right.
Just saying. I mean, sorry.
So, we apparently have a comment from a non-vaccinator. Or how do you say it? I'm gonna put it up on the screen just so that we can get a good laugh. So here's what it says: influencer with one viewer and 2 guests, all afraid to go outside and live real life.
I think it's ironic because he's inside somewhere watching this and posting that comment, not living real life and being outside. But that's just my interpretation of the comment. That's just me being a sarcastic bastard.
I mean, when I look at the comment, I'm saying to myself, first of all, who the hell said anything about not going outside? Okay,
Yeah, right.
Nobody said that. And nobody said whether we will get a vaccination or will not. We are simply discussing our opinion on religious exemptions, and that's it. So I'm going outside. I'm going
Yeah.
outside.
Absolutely.
Yep, I'm not shutting myself in, closing all the doors and windows.
Hello, and I'm still sending my kids to school. Now,
Yeah, exactly.
if they happen to get sick, we'll come against that when we'll cross paths when that happens, or if that happens. But at this moment, that's not happening, and all we're doing is having an opinionated talk and discussion. But thank you, Days Mike Horntro, for your comment.
Appreciate the comment. I love it.
Yes,
Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
everyone is entitled to their opinion. Okay, so Justin, what about adult vaccinations? Would you feel any different if there was a religious exemption against adult vaccinations?
I don't really think I'd feel different. I just would not be able to tie it into a religious sense, and unless you're going to have people, and I've got family that are the same, that are going to say, the Bible says that you should solely rely on God to provide for your health, and I understand that. I don't. I'm just personally, I'm not getting vaccinated. My children can get vaccinated because I don't want to be the one, like you said, 20 years down the road, they come back and say, hey, well, I should have gotten this. I wanted to get this. I don't want that on my plate. So me personally, I'm not offended if you're vaccinated or if you're not vaccinated. I still have to go to work. I still have to do what I need to do on a daily basis, regardless of if you're vaccinated or not. I've still got things to do.
Gotcha. And Jeremy, do you think we would have suppressed the COVID-19 virus in the amount of time that we did if these religious exemptions were allowed from 2-3 years back?
I don't know. I mean, I think we handled the whole COVID outbreak extremely poorly. I think most people would agree with that. So I don't know if it would have affected in a positive or negative way back then. I mean, because it was a nightmare back then when we were all shut in the house and everybody was afraid to go outside, and you're talking to everybody through a piece of plastic wall, and everybody had masks on. So I don't think the religious thing would have mattered back then. Now I think it's more that everybody understands COVID and understands vaccines help, and
Right.
or the studies show that they can help or do help. So I don't know. I'm kind of tossed up about the whole thing. I mean, I think faith is a good thing, and I think religion is a good thing, and I just don't want people to put themselves or their kids in danger by ignoring the science at the same time as all.
You mentioned more than once, actually, how some folks have said believe in God or put your trust in God, right? Not a vaccine. But are you aware of the many, many, many pastors and clergymen that passed away from COVID?
I was not aware of that.
A lot. And in fact, just a couple of days ago, a friend of mine informed me that her pastor just passed away. He was young. He was like 40, 45. And he passed away from complications from COVID. So it's still happening today. He's a clergyman. He's a man of faith. What happened?
I've been lucky. I've not had COVID yet. And I've
Me
been
neither.
literally reckless when it comes to, like, even when I was wearing a mask, I was the guy wearing it below your nose. You know what I mean? Breathing it in. So my mask
Yeah.
wasn't protecting shit.
So
So
you were the one that people would look at and say, "Look at that stupid ass over there."
yeah, he's gonna get COVID. No, I think I did one. I lost my taste and sense of smell for like a week. I thought I was having a stroke, and then I realized my mom's a nurse. She was like, "It's COVID." I'm like, "Oh, so maybe I did have it." But I was asymptomatic. I didn't have any symptoms at all. My son, poor guy, got it like 3 times.
Oh,
Wow.
And yeah, but we've been fortunate. It hasn't been very bad. But like I said, I'm assuming that's what the vaccinations help with, to make it less severe if you do
Right.
get it.
To keep you from dying, because that was another thing that was happening after people started taking the vaccine, and some of them were still getting sick. You had others, pointing out, "Oh, look, it's not working, so why are we taking it? They're still getting sick." I don't think the vaccination was necessarily to keep it away. It was
No.
just to prevent you from dying, from ending up in the
Yeah.
emergency room, from choking because you can't breathe.
People have a short-term memory these days. They forget how overwhelmed hospitals and nurses were, and how many nurses and medical staff got infected with COVID initially before there was any kind of help. So I think people forget that the overwhelming surge of patients across the country.
I am in New York, and I could never ever forget that, because here it's a
That
big
had to be
city.
crazy there in New
It
York.
was ridiculous. You had body bags lined up on the floor for feet. You had refrigerator trucks
I
parked
remember that
one behind each other, and all they had was body bags just tossed on top of each other.
because the morgues were full.
It was morbid, it was depressing, it was sad. All you could do was cry, because the people that were in those bags were your next door neighbors, and your classmates, and your colleagues. I mean, people were just dropping like flies.
Hmm.
wow. And see, I did not get to see that version of COVID because
I didn't either.
I was in a rural area in Oklahoma, and there was none of that going on at all. So some of us have been exposed. You have been exposed to an extreme version of COVID, to where we only know a mild version.
And you were lucky for that, and I would assume that would be the smaller areas maybe at the beginning were not as extreme, but the cities were beyond horrible. Beyond horrible.
Yeah, I live in a rural area too, so we didn't see it like that. Everybody was just cautious. It was desolate. It felt like a ghost town for a while. Like nobody wanted to go outside for a while there.
For sure.
I'm kind of glad we've moved through it. So we'll see what next strain comes out. It's like every 2 months a new strain comes out, anyways.
Yeah.
COVID keeps reinventing itself.
Because it's doing what?
I said COVID keeps reinventing itself. What'd you put me on full screen for?
Because I was getting something.
Oh,
thank you.
Okay. Now you tell me.
Thank you.
No, I guess the COVID keeps coming out with a new variant, but now we said before, it's so hard to listen to what they say anymore. Like, you don't know who to believe.
Yes.
One person comes out with one bit of information, the other person comes out with another bit of information, and you got to try and verify it on your own.
Yeah.
Well, we will just continue to do what we've always done, try to use our common sense with making the decisions that we make for ourselves, our family, our children, our loved ones, and hope for the best, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
This was a great discussion. I'm sure we're going to have more on it. There is word that COVID has been ticking up. COVID cases has been ticking up, and we're about to go into the 23-24 fall and winter season. They have been suggesting that some when you're in big crowds or areas with a lot of people, that perhaps you should put the mask back on. So I'm just putting that out there to everyone.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry. Especially if you don't like vaccinations and you don't want to get vaccinated, the next best thing would be the mask.
There you go.
I know some folks don't like that either, but if you can come up with a better hypothesis, I'm going to stay with the mask.
Dude, this is America. You tell somebody they have to do something, they'll be like,
They're
no,
not.
I don't. It
Yes.
doesn't matter what it is.
Yes, yes.
They hate being told not to do something or to do something. If you have to wear a mask, screw you, I'm not wearing a mask. Why? Because you said so. It doesn't make any sense.
That's it. That's exactly
Maybe what they should be doing is just doing the opposite of everything. Don't wear a mask. Live free.
A little reverse
Live
psychology. They're like, oh,
free.
wait, they're telling us to not wear a mask, so they must be on to
Yeah.
this whole circular logic they have.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for
Thank
joining me today on this topic for discussion. I'm sure that we will be discussing more in regards to COVID-19 and also in regards to vaccination. We're going to play out today with a short little brief description or instructions on what you should do when it comes to vaccinations and how to keep yourself protected. And this is just for those that believe in it, agree with vaccinations, or want vaccinations for themselves or for their family. We are in no way advertising or promoting that everybody should get it. This is a free country, and unless it's a law or a rule, I guess you have the freedom to get a vaccine or not, or to wear a mask or not. So we will leave you with that.
It's always better to prevent a disease than to treat it. That's why vaccines are so vital in protecting yourself, your family, and your community. While we can't prevent exposure, vaccines help keep those we love safe. Vaccines help you develop immunity by imitating the infection and triggering the body to make antibodies that protect you from that illness in the future. Vaccines are tested and monitored for safety by the Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Vaccines are recommended based on your age and health conditions.